Christ is risen. You just never know when that's going to happen on Easter morning. So Matthew's rendition of Easter morning is somehow both more meditative and more dramatic than the other three gospel accounts. The women in Matthew's telling of it are said to just be going to look at the tomb. It doesn't mention any spices. It doesn't mention the task of tending to their dead friend's body. They are just going to mourn and to be close to the one who meant so much to them. And then, bam! The earth quakes, an angel shows up, and we actually get to see the angel this time roll the stone out of the way. In all the other versions, it's already been moved. And this angel cuts a striking figure like so many of the angels that we see in Scripture. His face is like lightning. His clothes are dazzling white. So much so in the dazzling department that the guards who are posted there by the authorities faint from fear. And we learn that Jesus is already gone when that angel rolls the stone out of the way, which is answering an interesting question that we may not have known we had, that Jesus didn't need the stone rolled away for him to do his thing on Easter morning. We did, but he didn't. So the angel says that they will see Jesus in Galilee, but then Jesus decides to hang around long enough to tell them himself. One commentator describes what Mary Magdalene and the other Mary experienced that morning as a mixture of terror and delight. And it must have been both. So what actually happened is always up for debate. And the debate begins with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That it happened is also up for debate, oftentimes, it seems. And you can do a web search on your own to survey all the arguments, pro and con, if the facticity of the resurrection is your question that you bring today. For our purposes here this morning, I'm going to borrow and paraphrase a quote from the late Phyllis Tickle. This story is just too beautiful not to be true. So it is the truth, the power undergirding the resurrection that we will look at this morning, rather than the facts. Though I will say that while the facts have been disputed and disbelieved for millennia, they have never been disproven. So there's that. The last time that many of us gathered here on Friday night, God remained silent. Even through the agonized question that Jesus yells out, "Where are you?" Nothing. Unless you count the curtain in the temple tearing in two and the earth shaking and the rocks splitting when he died. Sometimes there are just no words to speak. But there were no words for the women holding vigil at the cross, and there were no words for Jesus on that night. This morning, though, this resurrection morning is God's resounding last word on the matter of Jesus' death and on death itself. Death and the powers of this world can do their very worst, and they do often, yet they have nothing on the life-giving love of God. And God isn't simply performing a miracle here either. No, God is creating a new world. Jesus is going to go meet everyone in Galilee, he says, but he is going to tell them that what is happening matters to the ends of the earth, and that they are charged with getting it there. The closest friends of Jesus and all of us who would come later were commissioned to begin work on the new world that burst into existence when that tomb was emptied out. God's kingdom had been inaugurated, and a new way of being human had been unveiled. You may remember, like I do, learning how to drive. I went to a driving school for that with an instructor who had his own brake pedal next to me. I remember all the hours and hours of practice with my parents in the passenger seat next to me. Then the nerve-wracking driving test. Now, I passed with a 70. And I swear that the guy just didn't want to make some other motor vehicle employee have to sit through that with me again. But the big moment was pulling out of the driveway with nobody else in the car. Solo for the first time. What a feeling that is. The world is different in that moment. It's bigger somehow. There are possibilities out there that just seem endless when there's nobody to tell you where to go. Now, you may have some other moments in life that you can point to where everything changed just like that. Another one of the ones for me was leaving the hospital for the first time with our first child. How could they possibly trust us with a human life that way? But nothing would ever be the same. And yet, the world spun on. Life went on around us. And this is oftentimes how Easter hits us, if it hits us at all. Everything has changed, yet nothing seems to have changed. The world spins on with all the tragedy and cruelty and pain seemingly unabated. But as it turns out, learning to trust in what doesn't at the moment feel true is an essential part of becoming a follower of Jesus at any time, any place. It is the now and the not yet of faith. What our reading from Colossians points out today is that we've changed. This resurrection has changed us. When Christ died, we died too, to an old world with old rules. And when Christ rose, we rose too, into a world where the rules had changed. Our lives have been remade and repurposed in this extraordinary event. Even if the rest of the world seems to be rolling on, unfazed. And this new resurrection world is God's reality, even if we tend to turn our backs on it from time to time. And learning to live in this new world where resurrection is the standard is going to be a lifelong adventure. Now, here at Littleton United Methodist, we have spent some time through this season of Lent looking at what it means to become Jesus-shaped disciples. Now, being a disciple may sound imposing to you, but it just means being a learner. That's what disciple means, learner. And like so many things that we learn in life, it takes practice. And it happens on purpose, not just by accident. Colossians says that if we are living this resurrection reality, then we can pay attention to that reality to get our cues for life. We can actually look to Jesus for that. In fact, this is how we become the people that God made us to be in the first place, by looking to Him. Now, since I referenced Star Wars a few weeks ago, I thought I could go back to it today. Luke Skywalker was just a kid working on his aunt and uncle's farm. He didn't know it, but there was something that was already at work in him. When the old master Obi-Wan shows up, Luke began to learn of a greater purpose into which he had been born. He had to learn about that purpose and about his gifts and skills that would help him to meet it. And there were tools that he had to acquire, lessons to learn, pilgrimages to take, challenges to face. He had to learn that he was part of a larger community that was working together for a common goal. For Luke, it was the Force that he learned bound all life together and empowered him to do some extraordinary things. For us, for you and me, it is the power of resurrection that makes us able to do extraordinary things. And it actually makes us able to be the genuine human beings God made us to be. And that is no small accomplishment. For one thing, it means us acknowledging that God's intention is for us to be good, to be instruments of light, piercing the world's persistent darkness. God did not intend for creation to be the scene of a moral free-for-all. If that's what it feels like sometimes, that's on us. So when we look to Jesus, we learn how we are supposed to look in God's new creation as new creations ourselves. We learn that we are to look like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. We are to look like goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. This list of the fruits of the Spirit can sound naive in a world without Easter. Heck, it can sound naive in a world with Easter. The challenge and the privilege for us as Easter people is to live these fruits in the middle of a world that cannot imagine it. To know these fruits are real in a world where they don't seem like it. And you've seen this happen. I was just thinking this week, many of you are on social media, and one of the influencers that comes across my reels regularly every day is this great woman. She's a nurse. Some of you may see her too. But every once in a while, she loves to find somebody else who's out there, some other person who has their own page. And she finds them, and she's got thousands and thousands of followers herself, and she will just come on her site, and she'll have this person behind her, and she'll point to them and say, "You see this person? This person is great. Don't tell them that I told you to go to their site, but go to their site and follow them just because they're so great." Little stuff like that we see all the time, don't we? We see neighbors pitching in to help each other in times of need. I mean, we here at Littleton United Methodist, we are working now to imagine what it will look like for us to start a new mission to our neighborhood, to be present with the people who live around us here. This congregation, you give generously all the time, in all kinds of ways. You give money, and you give diapers, and you give food and clothes, and of your time and your talents. These are ways that we get in the practice, in the habit. And we become that new creation that God has made us to be. We start to look like it in this world as we form those patterns in our lives that shape us into more Jesus-shaped people in the world. So as we go back out into this world today, having been reminded that you are a new creation, let's pay attention to how the fruits of the Spirit might be harvested in our lives. There are just enough of them for you to take one each day and see, where do I see love today? Where do I see gentleness today? Maybe it's in somebody else, maybe it's in me. That's a pattern that you can get into, a pattern to look for God's reality so that you can then be God's reality in this world that needs it so desperately. Let's look to Jesus for our model for how to live. Let's make sure that when the world encounters us, it has to do a double take because it's not quite sure if it saw what it saw when it sees you harvesting one of those fruits of the Spirit in your day. Because a new age has dawned. Even if that old one hasn't wrapped up yet, there's the now and the not yet. And may the world be amazed as the light of your Spirit pierces the darkness every day. Amen.